made probably one of the most disastrous mistakes, and ET was put out before we discovered what I call the double cross or the grand deception. They were trying to get us used to the benevolent living in the future, but that isn't the case.
Well, hello. Welcome to the show, folks. Exile Minds podcast. So I got me a bit unawares there. But yeah, this is Exile Minds podcast. I've had a few streaming issues, so I wasn't sure if this one was going to kind of pan out like, but we're here. We're here. Hello. And we can make it. So I've had some streaming issues, internet problems, so I don't know how it's going to work out going forward. I've contacted the company, and it looks like I'm going to have to send my router back, get them to look at it, get it fixed, whatever. So what I'm going to do is, I think they're saying it might be up to 2 weeks. So what I'm going to do is, I've missed 2 shows this week because of internet problems. So we'll do some pre-recorded ones, and then we'll do some pre-recorded shows because of these internet problems I've been having. And then I'll get a lead time. I'll do 9 or 10 shows, and then we'll get this thing fixed. And then hopefully we're back on top. Because what it is, I've got a mobile router and the battery stopped taking charge. So it's always, even when it's plugged in, it's always like struggling to give max power out. So I think that's why I've had some issues. So yeah, so this weekend I'll do the backup shows for this week that we haven't done. I'll do some ahead of time. And then, if we get fixed and if I find another way, then whatever. But yeah, so that's what I'll do. I'll do some extra. So I just wanted to point that out for everyone because someone was waiting in the chat yesterday, and I was really bummed out that it was there, and then just couldn't do it. I tried for an hour and a half, but just wasn't having it. So onwards and upwards, though. We'll keep moving. Anyway, today got a show on the Mandala Effect on the Exile Minds podcast with your famous host Liam Martin, broadcasting live from Nottingham. Today's date, this should have been for yesterday's show, but this is a Thursday, the 13th of July, 2023, broadcasting for KUAP, Troubled Minds Radio Network as well. And like I say, today on the show, we're going to cover, as a suggestion actually from one of the commenters in the YouTube chat there. Yeah, we're going to do the Mandala Effect today. So I've not really dived into this too much. So let's together step into the enigmatic realm where memories and reality intertwine, unveiling a fascinating phenomenon known as the Mandala Effect. We'll delve into the perplexing mysteries that leave us questioning the fabric of not only reality, but our own recollections, which is our reality, right? Our own reality. So join me, your famous host, Liam Martin, and the Exile Minds podcast on an exhilarating journey as we unravel the intricate web of alternate histories, collective misrememberings, and the curious quirks of human perception. Prepare to be captivated by this perplexing labyrinth of the Mandala Effect. So see. Oh, hi. Onwards and upwards, exactly. In the chat, there you see. There we go. Yeah, we've got there in the end. But what I'm going to do is, I'm glad you found your way here, Erica. So what we'll do is, we'll do some pre-records. I'll do a bunch of pre-records. I'll make a lead time. I'll get my internet fixed, and then we'll be good doing that. Because if it goes wrong, then I can just quickly upload a show, play that live, and, whatever. I'll have some scheduled ready, just reveal them. So, yeah, we'll do that. Anyway, Mandala Effect, let's do it. Let's do it. So where's this come from then? Because I've not dived into it too much myself. I thought it might be a bit too much of a rabbit hole, but there's Cerner doing stuff. And I love my particle physics business, right? And the first channel I found on YouTube was Alien Scientists, and they try and make for energy stuff. And I try and stay away from it because I know it will consume my life. So it's part of why I stayed away from this in case it links into CERN. But we'll see how it goes. There it goes. I'll learn something as well. So anyway, yes, then. So where does this come from? What's it all about? Let's have a check. First of all, the term. Apparently, turns out the term itself, because this is a bit of a misnomer as well, I wonder, but we'll get into that later. Yeah, the Mandala Effect. So what is it? If you've never heard of it, the Mandala Effect refers to a phenomenon where a large group of people remember an event, fact, or a detail in a particular way, only to find later that their collective memories doesn't align with the documented evidence. The term Mandala Effect, I discovered, supposedly, was coined by a lady called Fiona Broome with an E. She's a paranormal researcher, and she noticed that many people believed that Nelson Mandela had died in prison during the 1980s, despite Nelson Mandela being released in 1990 and later becoming president of South Africa. The Mandela Effect has since become associated with various examples where shared memories diverge from historical or factual record. Some popular examples, things like misremembering the spelling of a brand name. I think there was the beers, but were the Holstein beers? I know, I'm thinking Holstein cows, but yeah, there was the beers, Stein and Steen, movie quotes and stuff like that. There's famously the life is like a box of chocolates. That got a bit sketchy, but we'll get into this. And yeah, recalling the movies, the TV scenes that never actually happened. But let's just make one point on that one straight away. But sometimes also with movie scenes, you get bits that go on the cutting room floor that aren't in the movie that you then perhaps see a bit later. You get alternate scenes sometimes, but you know. But anyway, anywho, this way we'll try and have a look. We'll try and pick it apart and see what's what, and just see how it sort of pans out. Like, because I'm going to try and be logical about things, but at the same time, want to pull the threads and see if there's anything to this stuff. So the Mandela Effect, it does spark debate. A lot of theories ranging from alternate timelines, parallel universes, to faulty human memory. And the power of suggestion is where skeptics argue. So they argue that these collective memory discrepancies can be attributed to a combination of factors, including misinformation, false memories, and the way human memory is prone to distortion over time. Okay. But we'll have a look at this Fiona Rano, because she coined the term. So Fiona Broome, she's got a website, but I think it was here we go. It looked like it was under maintenance the other day. But it looks like we're good today. So for the radio listeners, I'll describe as best as I can. If you're on the video, you can sort of see it on the screen. And of course, links always in the description. Okay, so Fiona Broome, this is from her website. As an author and Amazon associate, I earn from qualifying purchases. Okay, so we've got a little thing at the top. Right, I'm Fiona Broome. Here's what I do. As an author, I write about many topics, including ghost hunting and haunted places. My first ever ghost-related articles were published in Fate magazine in the 1970s. So yes, I'm an old timer with a lot of research experience. So she's been researching since the 70s. Been doing it for a while. She began her first ghost-related website in the mid-90s and launched hollowhill.com in 1999. That's where many of today's ghost hunting TV stars first discovered their skills. It's still among the oldest and largest how-to website for people interested in ghosts, spirits, and haunted places. Okay, so this lady, Fiona Broome, who coined the term, she's been into this stuff for a while. So I think she gets the sort of credit for first speaking the term Mandala Effect. And she's done a lot of stuff. So yeah, you can check this lady out if you want to sort of follow up on her. She's been a media consultant. I use history, genealogy, and geography to confirm, or more often debunk, site owners' concerns and find unexplored haunts in the UK and USA. When I research well-known haunted places, I go far beyond the popular legends. For me, it's a personal challenge to discover the truth. So I quite like that, actually. I quite like that little write-up. I don't want to read all of her website. But yeah, she coined the term. She seems okay. Like she wants to just get to the bottom of things. And I think the personal experience, and that's why it stands out to me there, and I make a point of it. When you're talking about a personal experience, we're talking about the experience bit as the key word. Experiential learning. When you experience the event yourself, then you kind of know, don't you? it's there. You've got it. Integrates into you, sort of thing. Whereas, like we say, oh, you tell about a scenario, it was funny, and then you're not getting the reaction. You're like, oh, you had to be there, sort of thing. And I think that's true, because the immediate presence of your own felt experience is like the closest you can get to an actual truth or definite reality. That's the thing. So yes, so she seems okay. So the Mandala Effect then. So are people misremembering things in history? And if so, why? And this is the thing we need to sort of look into. So this is where I got interested in this. And like I say, it sparks debate. But famously, or maybe you don't know, but famously, really, eyewitness testimony, it's notoriously unreliable. You can't use just eyewitness testimony in a court of law, right? Because it's so damn unreliable. It's well known to be not great. I think it's a bit like people fill in the blanks with stuff, I think. And yeah, we'll get into this then. So we'll have a look at from the Smithsonian, actually. I've got this article here. So they're looking at sort of how memory works. So from the Smithsonian, from the magazine online, so this is smithsonianmag.com, we have a science article. Trust the science. How our brain, because science is, the most accurate lens on the material world we've had so far. So, science is pretty cool. So let's have a look at the science. How our brains make memories. So I just thought it's a good way, perhaps a good place to start. Have a look at how memories work in the brain before we sort of dive into this. So yes, how our brains make memories. Surprising new research about the act of remembering may help people with post-traumatic stress disorder, which I thought was pretty cool, because a lot of people got that, and I can tell you what, it is no joke. So let's have a look then. This is from May 2010, so yeah, it's pretty old research, but yeah, Greg Miller, this article. Sitting at a sidewalk cafe in Montreal on a sunny morning, Carmen Nadar recalls day 8 years ago, earlier when two planes slammed into the Twin Towers at the World Trade Center. He lights a cigarette and waves his hand in the air to sketch the scene. At the time of the attack, Nadar was a postdoctoral researcher at New York University. He flipped the radio on whilst getting ready to go to work and heard the banter of a morning disc jockey turn panicky as they related the events unfolding in Lower Manhattan. Nadar ran to the roof of his apartment building. We had a view of the tower less than 2 miles away. He had a view of the towers, the Trade Center towers, less than 2 miles away. He stood there stunned as they burned and fell, thinking to himself, no way, man, this is the wrong movie, right? And so later, just more to this article. So he's making the point of he saw the Trade Center stuff happen, and he was like kind of right there in New York. Okay. Later on, it says, in the following days, Nadar recalls he passed through the subway stations where walls were covered with notes and photographs left by people desperately searching for missing loved ones. It was like an upstream river of sorrow, right? And it says, like millions of others, Nadal had vivid and emotional memories on September the 11th, attacks and the aftermath. But as an expert on memory, and in particular on the malleability of memory, means it's squishy, you can mold it. He knows better than to fully trust his own recollections. This is his business. So the point is here, this is a guy that saw Trade Center stuff. It was in New York, and it was before he officially become a doctor, got his qualifications. Now he's a doctor looking at memories, doing neurology, okay? And he's misremembering stuff, is the point. But he studies memories, so he knows to question his memories rather than just go with him like we normally would. Okay, so back on with the article. So the point is, he's making basically that he's misremembered stuff. He distinctly remembers seeing announcements on the TV was saying that other people remember that happened later on. He's got the time sort of out of order kind of thing. So that was just the point that Smithsonian making, this doctor saying, yeah, you can sort of misremember. He believes that he may have an explanation for such quirks of memory. His ideas are unconventional within neuroscience, and they have caused researchers to reconsider some of the most basic assumptions of how memories work. In short, Nadar believes that the very act of remembering can change our memories. Much of his research on rats is on rats, but he says the same basic principle can apply to human memory as well. In fact, he says it may be impossible for humans or any other animal to bring a memory to mind without altering it in some way. Nadar thinks it's likely that some types of memories, such as the flashbulb memory, as in the big event like 9/11, it's like a flashbulb, it sticks in your mind, or the Kennedy assassination, you know where you were, that sort of thing. Hillsborough disaster, whatever. So he says the flashbulb memories are more susceptible to change than others. Memories surrounding major events like September 11 might be especially susceptible, he says, because we tend to replay them over and over again in our minds and in conversation with others, with each repetition having potential to alter them. So this is, this will be the first skeptic thing of like, so we look at memories. It's well known with police stuff that in that course, like I say, that people tend to misremember stuff, maybe fill in the blanks. And like I say, if you keep repeating things, you somehow add things in, or maybe you speculate. And this is what they call in remote viewing. This is what you call analytical overlay. With you sometimes you try and figure out what happened, and then you add stuff in there that would make the story make sense of it when that's not necessarily there. You have to try and practice to resist. Or if you do, you do get one. Like if you, for example, if you're trying to remote view something from a distance, which that stuff does work. If you see something that's yellow and curved, you're going to straight away think banana, because it's about the only thing that you can think of that's yellow and curved. But it don't necessarily mean it's a banana. And you're putting your own impression on it. And that's the point. And I've heard this argument before. Every time you remember a memory, you change it. But, I don't know about that. I don't know how far that goes. I know that's not the case. In some ways, in some things, at least with PTSD and stuff. There are some things that just are the case, aren't there? But it's which ones are which and trying to sort them out. I think that's where it gets difficult. That's why this is a bit of an interesting one. So we've got this then from the Smithsonian, basically saying that, potentially it can be altering events when you remember them, especially if it's a major incident. But like say with Mandala stuff, some of these things are really trivial. And in fact, I will give a shout out to Petra. I used to know somebody years and years ago called Petra. And she swore that there used to be a pot noodle by Golden Wonder that was cheese and tomato flavor. Because she said, well, growing up, it was my favorite flavor. Right. And I was like, well, the cheese and tomato one. I thought there was just chicken and mushroom and, beef and tomato. And she was like, yeah, and the curry one, yeah, and newer ones. But she says, no, originally there was a cheese and tomato one. I was like, you sure you don't mean the beef and tomato? And she's like, no, cheese and tomato. And then someone else was there as well. And he wasn't having it either. So we looked it up. Because she was about 10 years older than us as well. So I thought, oh, maybe she does now. We looked it up, went on the Golden Wonder website, all through the history. I couldn't find cheese and tomato. And she swore and said it was her favourite stuff when she was growing up. So I thought, well, it can't have been just a one. They had it several times. So I thought maybe they just changed it or didn't add it into the history. And then that got me thinking of when I was a kid and we were learning about history, they taught us the Battle of Hastings was in 1066. And then the Great Fire of London was in 1666, exactly 600 years later. And I remember thinking, what if you thought that the Battle of Hastings was in 1065 or 1064? It's only a couple off. But what if you change it in all the history books? So I knew I learned it as 1066, but if I went to a history book and they all said 1065, I'd probably doubt myself. And 1 year off don't seem to make a difference. But if you change some event in history and shift it a bit, it could change the whole context. And then you could look back at your history and go, hey, that land's supposed to be ours. And that's supposed to be this. Do you know what I'm saying? They could change things easily. And this is where it gets a bit interesting with the Mandala Effect stuff, because that very thing was even covered in Babylon 5, where all of the archives were on this one computer, and somebody found out. Everyone was really shocked, like keep it a secret, and like what we're going to do. Somebody found out that someone had been gone in there and changed in the archives, changing the past, like history from centuries ago, and they didn't think you could do that you couldn't alter it. So everybody is relying on these computer records, thinking that's the exact history, unaltered. But someone was sneaking in and changing little details in history, which starts to change the present and change who owns what and what goes where. Do you know what I'm saying? So this is why this one gets a bit mind bending. But anyway, moving on. So we've done a Smithsonian about how you might be able to alter memories, and yeah, there's that sight unseen phenomenon where you get intentional blindness. Unless we pay close attention, we can miss even the most conspicuous events. It's the gorilla example. Basically, there's an example of there's a scene where there's an experiment done where you see a bunch of kids playing basketball, and a gorilla walks through the scene, but your task you don't know it's going to happen. So your task is watch how many passes happen during a basketball game. And then so you're counting all the passes, and this person in the gorilla suit walks across the scene, but you don't notice it because you're counting passes. And then afterwards, they like say, "Did you see the gorilla?" And you're like, "What gorilla?" And they show it again, and you're like, you totally see it straight away, So it's like you do get this selective blindness. And without going into detail, I can tell you before that I've had a situation where I've thought I must be hallucinating. And I've kind of run out of there because some freaky thing happened. And I thought that can't be for real. And I've gone outside and there was a car on the drive. I couldn't see it. I don't know if it was unless I was in another time zone, in another reality pocket. That car was there, but I couldn't see it. And I thought, where's the car? And there was and it was raining a little bit. It'd been raining a bit. And there's a dry patch where the car is. So I could see the dry patch. And I couldn't see the car. It was a bit of a weird one. I had a fever when I was a teenager. And something freaky happened in my room. And I ran outside and I thought, where's my mum and dad's car? So I went to ask the neighbors, and then the car was there. So I unhallucinated something. So the brain is weird. Anyway, in the chat, there's comments in the chat. I swear the TV. Enrico. I don't want to butcher your name. I'll try. Enrico Donne Vigilene. I'll try it. Yeah, Enrico. Anyway, in the chat, I swear that some TV show scenes had happened in my childhood and adolescent years, and I remember them clearly. But what's happened there? Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, so yeah, but yeah, when we've watched them, they've changed. I wonder about that myself because, like with the history example, you could go and change. You could print a detail wrong in the history books, and everyone's going to assume it's correct. And you can easily change a scene in a video. Do you know what I'm saying? Because we're getting everything as digital content. You can change that no problem. And it's the same with the idea of book burning. If you burn the hard books, just like with the Babylon 5 example, if you burn all the hard books and put everything on a digital format, then people can edit that willy-nilly. In fact, Amazon, that's the thing about buying a real book, you're allowed to sell it on. A hard copy book, you can sell it. You can lend it to people. You do what you want with it. You can eat it as a hamburger if you want. But digital laws aren't the same. You're not allowed to resell a digital product. You can't buy an Amazon book and then sell it on. With a physical book, you can. And people like Amazon and digital content, they reserve the right to pull that book back or edit it. And they don't have to tell you. Now, consider this. People like Amazon, the first thing they did was deal with secondhand books. And then they invented the Amazon Kindle and then the Amazon Fire. So there is a kind of book burning kind of situation going on, sort of, in a way, which then gets into that, well, that's your history. That's what we're relying on. And so you can alter it. This is the scary thing about the Mandala Effect, is that you can easily alter history pretty easily and screw with people and take them off track. And then I get thinking, is it like a psyop to confuse us? So we just trust the authorities or is it that reality changing things have really happened? I don't know. I don't know how that works, but we'll talk a bit more about this as a break coming up soon. I mean, we'll talk a bit more more about this, but I've got to say, I've got a really good one for you. A great Mandala effect. We'll go through some of them after the break. Some of these things that look to have changed. Now we've looked at how your memories can be altered. We've got to consider that. We can get things wrong, but it's some weird stuff. And I've got a really, it's a speculative one, but I've got a really brilliant example of maybe the ultimate Mandala effect that's actually happening, that's already happened, and we look at it all the time. And it might be an explanation of how this stuff works if it is a freaky thing. But yeah, that was a little Dan Brewer-ish thing. But anyway, we'll do that. I'll get some music up for this this break then. What should we play? Play this funky one. I'll play play this funky one. Play Grove Stones. Do that. This Galactic Federation bumper one. I'll do this. So yeah, we'll just have a quick break because I'm trying to keep this tight to the radio clock. So we'll carry on with the Mandala effect after this break. We've looked at how memories can sort of be altered a little bit, get it a bit wrong, but at the same time, things can be altered for us and we can be tricked. And then this is about looking at things changing in time. And it's interesting that mandalas, you get mandalas for meditation, don't you? Like color tracker wheels going through time. So I found that curious. But anywho, we'll have a little break, play a little bit of music, and then Exile Minds podcast, Liam Martin, returning just a sec. Stay tuned. We'll talk about Mandala Effect.
Mike's pretty skeptical, but actually, we both got weirded out by something that mentioned literally heartbeats happening in the Galactic
Federation. Yes. Welcome back, Exile Minds podcast. With me, your incredibly famous and dashingly good-looking host, Liam Martin. And yeah, okay, we're back. Exile Minds podcast. We've slipped over it now, but it was Thursday, the 13th of July, 2023. Broadcasting live and from Nottingham, UK, and for the Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP. Please tell everyone it's still kind of it's going. It's not collecting numbers yet. We say it's in beta, but it's running. More new shows come in. Troubled Minds Radio, check that out as well. Troubled Minds Radio. We have conversations, intellectual conversations where we take on board the information, see where it goes. We don't have to fall out. Nobody's got all the answers. We just want to know what's what and learn stuff. So I like Roger. I'm glad you mentioned Roger Spur. Yeah, Roger Spur, Mudfossil University, everybody. And check him out. Look, this guy this guy is onto stuff. And he's had to saturate the market for years, make content every day. He's Johnny on the spot with it, but trying to help him get bigger and expand with some of these other platforms. Because I think he's got a lot to say, and I think he's gone out his way to learn the stuff. He's gone to the university courses, done them for free, and he's learned his material science. And I think we need to relearn a lot of stuff. There's a lot of science things that have changed. New information's come along, and they're not really being utilized. I think a lot of people, they don't know, and trying to spread the word out. But you get associated with there's some crazy stuff that goes on in the world, which is the way it is. But yeah, Roger Spur, Mudfossil University. I'm helping him build stuff up, but yeah, check him out. It's good stuff coming up. Anywho, on with the show. Mandala Effect. Let's have a chat then. So what's next? Next on Mandala Effect. First, we looked at the fact that you can your memories can sort of get altered a bit. There's the basketball game experiment where someone walks through a gorilla suit and you sort of don't notice because you're counting the passes. But there's interesting things. As we found out. The term Mandala Effect originally was coined by Fiona Broom, but I wondered if it was also about, because the mandala, I thought, is it mandala like fractal, like the Mandelbrot set? Okay, which is that famous sort of fractal pattern. It looks like a bit of a bug, and it keeps repeating. You zoom in to it, go to the edges, and it's the same pattern again. And we also get Indian mandalas. In fact, let's get some Indian mandala pictures up. They have this thing called in India in the meditation stuff. They have mandalas, okay, and they're like wheels that are fractal in nature. There's sort of flower life patterns and sort of repeating patterns you go inside, but some of them are really well known ones, and one of them is known as a time wheel, right? And you get these mandalas, and I wondered if originally the Mandala Effect was about fractals and mandalas and the Mandelbrot set. And in this article, well, you'll find this a lot of places, but in thehindu.com, I found this. Well, I knew about this anyway, so I looked it up. Is this Kala Chakra? It means wheel of time. It's derived from Sanskrit words kala meaning time and chakra meaning wheel or circle. And in Tibetan language, it's known as duskor, meaning time cycle. And the reason I mention this is because, like with these mandalas, I was under the impression the notion with that was that you'd sit on one of these mandalas and meditate, and you can sort of drop through time a little bit. So I thought it's interesting that that's a fractal in nature kind of thing. However, the term it seems to be, it's not really from that. It's because of Nelson Mandela. So it gets a bit confusing. Because the concept of it, of like memories changing and things, details changing through time, is a fractal kind of thing, like these mandalas. So that fits. But actually, it's more a case of Nelson Mandela, because, like I say, people thought that Nelson Mandela had died in prison. But the interesting thing about this is that there is a book. Yeah, there's a lot of examples on this website, and there is a book that I'm going to highlight in a minute. But we'll just for the radio listeners, so you can check it out. If you go to timelineshift.blogspot.com, somebody writes a blog about this. It's called a timeline shift, and it's from 2017. But there's a lot of stuff on here that's got some examples of things that's sort of changed, looking at potential timeline shifts. MandelaEffect.com offline up is up there as well. Got an archive for that stuff. Created by Rolf Loudmouth, apparently. So yes, so we'll have a look at this because just quickly type in this. Oh, wrong one. Yeah, if you press if I'm on the page, look, if I quickly press Control F and type in English, hopefully, English Alive. Yeah, there's a section in a book. This is why it's a bit strange, because there is kind of some weird evidence. The Mandala thing, you wouldn't think, well, Nelson Mandela, historical figure. But there is a book, and I looked this up a long time ago. This is a real book. And luckily, there's a feature here. This is from a South African book from 1991, right? It says Nelson Mandela died July 23rd of July 1991. And so you can, on the website, it says here, I came across a snippet of the South African education book published in October 1991. And it states that Nelson Mandela died in July. So the idea is that there's an English book from South Africa that was published at the end of 1991 saying Mandela died that summer. I was talking about, and it says there's a section in the book. This is from Google Books as well. This image, it's on Google Books. And it says this section, so I'll just read all. It says, to listen to the words. So it's just describing some events at the time. We're not long enough to bridge the vast differences between blacks and whites. The chaos erupted in the ranks of the ANC when Nelson Mandela died on the 23rd of July 1991. Brought the January 29th, 1991 Inkatha ANC peace accord to nothing. It lacked one thing. It lacked the last realization. And so they're going on. They're just writing about, apartheid and, the struggle in Africa with blacks and whites and all the politics. And just in there is a throwaway line, like it's just a normal thing. We've got, this statement, Nelson Mandela died on the 23rd of July, 1991. And this is where it's creepy, because I don't know if this is. I don't want to say that's true or not. I don't really know, but I do remember. I've got a good memory for detail, and I remember I was at school in the 80s and a bit of the 90s, the 90s. And I remember things were sad then. When I was like 8 or 9, I remember there was an announcement about Nelson Mandela, and it was already kind of sad, And you'd think, well, hang on a minute, that's sort of 88, 89, 90. And I think, well, hang on, what am I supposed to, if you got released from prison, shouldn't that be a good thing? I don't know. Maybe we was first learning about him and it's sort of a sad story of Nelson Mandela. I don't know. It just gets you wondered, doesn't it? Maybe that was because it felt like that somber stuff. When you hear of a death at school, it's like a somber thing that goes over the school, and it's so when teachers sort of tell you, oh, this thing's important that's happening in the world, you kind of just believe it, don't you? It might just be the political, BS, but when you're a kid, you don't know about that stuff, do you? So you take it seriously, don't you? And unfortunately, in my junior school and in my senior school, there's been a death, and it's like gone around the school, and everyone's kind of sad. And it felt that kind of vibe. And I thought, is that where he died? But then, what do you put in a puppet character, a political puppet, to play a role of this thing? I don't know how it works, but it gets you wondering about other characters in history, doesn't it? Maybe they weren't quite how they panned out. And there's a really scary thing, Mandela Effect or not. So we'll go from some examples in a minute. But let's say with the book editing, and if you have a global disaster and move and redistribute the population, which has happened a few times, then if the kids get moved to different countries, you can teach them a different history, can't you? A different narrative. And then 20 years later, you've got a whole new generation of different, a different history. They think, oh, we're just coming into an industrial revolution, start it all over again. But anyway, let's look at some more examples then. Let's really get into some of these examples. So you've got that. We've got that one, but I will jump back to the top. That is a weird one, though. That book one. That was the first one I ever sort of heard of. But in this, there's a picture for the video viewers. I say on the timelineshift.blogspot.com. You can look at these. It says the residual evidence of old world geography. Pictured on the left is a 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollar, and on the right is one from 1999. So one from 79, one from 20 years later. It says, please pay attention to the small globe on the left and observe on the left of the coins, right? Observe the globe on the left. On the coin from 79, South America is pictured just beneath the US. On the coin from 99, South America is noticeably further east, and that is true. Is America's, and you can see just right enough, but on the right-hand side one, you can see, South America has clearly been shoved off to the right a bit. So that is a bit odd. And there's all the maps of the world are all different throughout the years. The global maps from NASA, they seem to keep changing. Like the landmass has changed quite dramatically. Again, here's another example. I didn't know about this. Madonna. Some people vividly remember the real name of the American pop star Madonna to be Maria Louise Ciccone. Maria Louise Veronica Ciccone. This is not the case in the current timeline history. Now her real birth name is Madonna Louise Ciccone. Madonna Louise Veronica Ciccone. In the old timeline, the name Madonna wasn't a real name. She adopted it as a stage name, and it was considered an affront to the church. But according to the current timeline, that never happened. Yeah, I thought Madonna was a stage name. So I don't know. Maybe you can change your name and then get the records of it having been changed deleted if you pay enough money. Who knows? But Madonna's Wikipedia entry has changed. On this website, there's a link. You will find a brief description of Madonna's life story, which states her real name is Maria Louise Ciccone, as described before. But it's what freaks me out. That's why I don't understand this thing. If the timelines change, wouldn't your memories change? So why do some people have the evidence of the thing? Wouldn't that change? Right. So then it makes it look like, no, it's just some records have been changed. Why wouldn't somebody be affected? What do you know what I'm saying? Or are they are we all in our own local space-time bubble? We're in our own little bubble, space-time bubble. And as long as, as long as we know it enough, I don't get it. I don't get it. But then they do say there's about 10% of, is it 10 or 15% of the population, you can't really hypnotize them. You know, because it's just suggestion. You have to kind of go with it. But I think 10% of the population can't be hypnotized. So maybe that's the thing. Maybe it's some of that. I don't know. Moving on. So we've got Madonna example. Got that then to the dollars seem to have changed. We've had that South African book saying Mandela died. Here's a screenshot for the video viewers of it saying about Maria Louise Madonna. But, you know, it's got the original spelling there. I don't know. And it's there, look. An old Wikipedia picture as well. So there was even a controversy about her real name on a talk page archive in English Wikipedia from, the 12th of February 2009. And so, so maybe someone's just changed the entry. I don't get it. But it says the Bulgarian version of Madonna's Wikipedia page is a surprise, and it still states the real name that people remember, which does not exist in the current timeline. So the Bulgarian one has still got the old name. Her name's not really Madonna. It's saying it's a stage name. So I suppose the simple explanation for that is that someone's gone and changed it on the European and American one. Maybe to confuse us, but stuff like this is weird. The Ford logo is a Reddit user snapped a picture of a Ford logo here without the curl on the F. 'Cause there's a line on the F. Used to have a curl on it. I always thought. But this one's not got it. But then if you go down, there's another picture where someone's got one here. Again, it's not there. But then later on, boom shankar, it's got this little... Another one's got the curve. Oddly enough, on all the other logos on the truck, show the loot logo. Here, 3 pictures of the F loot. One there, one there. So sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. So what's going on with that? Is that like a fragmented reality thing? You know? Isn't that crazy? I don't know how that works. But yeah, so sometimes the kill's there, sometimes it's not. The Volkswagen logo is another one. Some people remember the Volkswagen logo to be without the cut in the middle. Here is a residue from the old timeline taken from a show Airport Security at Columbia National Geographic Channel. So that's not got the line in the middle on the VW logo. And then there's a backside of VW police vehicle without the slit. I don't know. I can't see the line on any of these though. Because some people remember there's a line there now to separate the V that's connecting to the W and VW. The V's above the W, and there's usually a line separating them as they connect. But it's a weird one. And what I'll say, we've got the book, the Africa book, English Alive, and so I don't know. Oh yeah, the ISBN. I'll give the ISBN number for that book. It's 06201 51 862 97 80 620 151 863. And yes, there's a front cover for the video viewers, the English Alive. Yeah, Egyptian pyramids. Oh, what's this one then? The Great Pyramid of Khufu used to be in the middle, behind the Sphinx, and the capstone was missing. Now Khufu, or the Pyramid of Cheops, is not in the middle. It has a twin, Khafre, in the middle, next to it is standing at the same height. You've got 2 of them at the same height. The Great Pyramid stands at 139 meters, and Khafre stands at 163. The smallest one, Menkaure, was more further left than in the picture below, and also further away. The pyramids were more remote than they are now. Giza is right next to them. That's a tough one. Actually. Because, I thought one was clearly a lot bigger than the rest of them, like in this picture here. The images are close to reality and the pyramids used to be. This is a painting from Otto Tillich, Camels and Pyramids, it's called, from 1900. And that's what I thought it was, actually. The big ones is quite clearly bigger, much bigger. And the position, and it should be in the middle, but now we're saying on this like Google Earth overview map, we're saying that the great one's on one side. It's like the big one and the medium one and then a small one. But that's not how I remember it. The big one should be in the middle. That is interesting. That is quite fascinating. Wow. That's crazy. That is a bit crazy. So I don't know. Let's see if there's any more. Proof dimensions are overwriting each other. Oh, that reminds me of the things I wanted to say about the Dampurish overwriting thing. Oh, let's see. Is that got this? Okay. They're just saying it's overread. Here's an overwriting one. It's reminding me. I'll just see if there's any more after this with an example. All right. Okay. All right. This is what I've got to say about this. Here's an overwriting example. Like I said earlier, I kind of bigged it up a bit. I was saying that there was a Mandala effect that might be right in front of us that we've seen all the time. Dark Devious! Much love from the US. I made you a mud mod, bro. Dark Devious is a mud mod. He's a mud mod man. Anyway, got him on the Mud Fossil University Discord. So I let him know trying to build stuff up. So anyway, yes. All right then. Let me wrap up with this because I'm ending an hour. Run out of time. All right then. Let me wrap up with this. Right. This is a weird one because, like I say, we've got the Indian mandalas, fractal type business. Look, we're falling down a rabbit hole with this, and like I say, there is some weird examples. I wonder about CERN because CERN literally said, right, when CERN's machine didn't work in the beginning, Hadron Collider, there was like, oh no, it did work, but it destroyed the universe. And then so therefore pushed us on a timeline where it didn't work to explain why we're still here. But okay, all right then. If we're taking that means they're just telling us they can do that. They can do this stuff. If we're going to accept that, I don't know. But also, right, Dan Burish. I mentioned Dan Burish on the aliens thing. He's supposed to have worked at one of these facilities as a microbiologist dealing with an alien at Papoose in an S4 facility, one of these underground base things. Right. He said this. Check this out. I remember him saying this. You can listen to his interviews. I think he's got a bunch on YouTube. You can look him up. Dan Burish used to be known as Dan Crane. But this guy, the ultimate Mandala man, he said this. He said that at some point in history, around this time, something happens with the sun or whatever. We find some Stargate stuff. That was the weapons of mass destruction that Iraq had. They found some ancient Stargate type thing. And they were kept sending it to Syria and sending it back to Iraq so the US couldn't get it. Anyway, that's what he was saying. And basically, it was saying that, look, some timeline business did happen. Yeah. And when we started messing around with stuff, a version of us from the future, that kind of like Greys, keep coming back and like trying to feed us information and technology or whatever to make sure that history pans out as it's supposed to. But then, and they're saying in their timeline, they all went underground and screwing around with Stargate technologies. It did something with the sun. It was a bad idea, and they thought it was going to kill the surface of the Earth. So they went underground for ages, but the surface people survived. They went more spiritual, developed, went on to develop Mars a little bit, and then flew off into the stars. But the bad guys stayed underground for centuries and centuries. They thought the Earth's surface was poisoned and didn't come up for ages and didn't realize that we'd all evolved independently. And so they're supposed to have. So the bad guys came back from the future to justify their timeline, and the good guys, came from even further in the future, like 50,000 years away, came back to try and get us back on track and warn us that, this is a really pivotal time for human history, right? So they're trying to warn us so that we can get off that kind of timeline and have our own thing going on, which is nice. Okay. And so Dan Burish said that because there's two versions of us coming from the future, it's the same timeline, but one's the bad guys coming from 30,000 years away and us coming from 50,000 years away. He said they're persistent traveling here to this moment, trying, one to pull us this way, one to pull us the other. He reckons that started imprinting parts of their timeline onto ours, right? So think about it. They said that it started imprinting on Mars because the ruins on Mars that we're looking at, thinking they look like structures, that's the stuff that we would have built in thousands of years' time. And then tens of thousands of years after that, they go into ruin because we've left. So Dan Burris said, he didn't call it the Mandala Effect, but it's the ultimate one. Dan Burris reckons that versions of us from the future, from two different points in time, have been coming to Earth, right? Trying to guide us, screw us around with us, and it's imprinting parts of their timeline. But they're at a time when they've already built stuff on Mars and left it long ago, and it's gone to ruin. So the ruins of Mars are being imprinted onto our Mars. So isn't that weird? If we finally get to Mars and start exploring them ruins, we might find that the builders was us, but we just haven't done it yet. Right? How weird's that going to be? How weird's that going to be? Enrico and Dark Devious, if you get to Mars, look at them ruins, and you've tagged them. You've tagged them, you got your name on them. You turn up, who built the ruins? Dark Devious. What? The mighty Rohan, the famous Liam Martin, and the Troubled Minds Radio Network built all the ruins. Do you know what I'm saying? Mind-bending stuff. I tell you. It gets crazier. So maybe we'll have to do a show on fractals and revisit mandalas again. And we'll get him saying that crazy story, man. Yeah, brain scrambling. That's what I'm saying. I better put some music on and wrap the show up before. That's why I wear the hats. Keeps my head intact. Ooh. But anywho, let's play some music to wind it up. Exile Minds podcast. The famous Liam Martin. A show on the Mandala Effect. Radio clock time, so I've got to get going. But let's have an inspirational thing to take our mind off our brains exploding. So, some inspirational music to take us out. Thanks for joining us. I'm glad they've got the stream going. I'll do some pre-records just in case, and then we'll pop them up in case it goes wrong again. Anyway, take care, folks. I'll catch you soon.
No one would have believed in the early years of the 21st century. Our world was being watched by intelligences greater than our own. And as men busied themselves about their various concerns, they observed and studied. The way a man with a microscope might scrutinize the creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. With infinite complacency, men went to and fro about the globe, confident of our empire over this world. Yet, across the gulf of space, intellects vast and cool and unsympathetic regarded our planet with envious eyes. And slowly and surely, through their plans,
Kindness kills you. I've given up all chance at inner peace. I'll make my mind a summer's place. I share my dreams with ghosts. I wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago from which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for it. My anger, my ego, my unwillingness to heal, my eagerness to fight has set me on a path from which there's no escape. I yearn to be a savior against injustice without contemplating the cost, and by the time I look down, there's no longer any ground beneath my feet. What is my sacrifice? I share my dreams with ghosts. I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy. defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life. I make the sunrise that I know I'll never see. Now, the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror, an audience, the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice? Everything!